Okay, man, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Now, come on, now crank this motherfucker up.
Break it down like this.
Hello, Gino, that Guido Rieco here again with another episode of Deep Listens, and today we're going to be delving deep into the Caves of Qud, a roguelike that I've been told is more accessible than most roguelikes. And when I say roguelike, I mean like it's actually like the game Rogue. It's not just run based. Joining me as always to discuss all things video games, one Pete Busby. How you doing, Pete?
Doing very good. Very excited this week, maybe even more so than usual, because this week, in lieu of a fun fact, Gino has invited me to make a very special announcement. And Gino, I just want to let you know that I'm honored you asked me to do this.
Wow. I'm honored
But
to hear about the thing I asked you to do.
yeah, in light of the incredible recent success and I would say societal value of the Hawk coin, Deep Listens has decided to make their own crypto offering. So just go to your favorite crypto exchange. We here at Deep Listens like Coinbase, but that's up to you. And search Deep Listens, ticker sign DEEP, and get involved. I promise you it's going to go to the moon. Diamond Hands Hodl Gang.
What?
No.
Huh? What?
No.
We're not doing that anymore, Gino? You were so excited about it when you brought it up last week.
No. That's not. You're a liar. You're a liar, and unfortunately, I feel like I have to say this very explicitly because of the prevalence of this exact sort of thing. We've gotten to the point in the world where I'm afraid that comedy, sometimes you have to take a back seat to saying, that is not happening, that is not real, don't go to that.
We made it up.
Do
Go to
not.
pump.fun and search Deep Listens.
Do not go to pump.fun. Ever. Whatever you do, don't do that.
Pump.fun. What would you find there?
It's
I don't.
basically
What is
it's
it?
a place where anyone can make up meme coins and just rug pull people to their heart's content.
Oh.
How did you learn all of this?
Just I'm dialed into the crypto space, you know?
Of course. For sure. That other voice of incredulousness you heard is one M. Palladino. How you doing, M?
That threw me so badly. I'm shocked and appalled. Hello. I was gonna plug my Blue Sky and itch stuff, and now I'm trying to collect my thoughts at the thought of a Deep Listens Bitcoin.
Almost
Hello.
quit live on air.
Yeah, I had no part in that. That was completely Pete. Yeah, so I've been doing a lot of stuff on Blue Sky, and I have a bunch of games that are now up on itch. A lot of them are popping off right now because they're in a big bundle.
Hey!
Yeah, they if you go on itch right at the top, it's the California Fire Relief Bundle. Uh, it's got games like Tunic and Bug Snacks and
Bug Snacks.
yeah, some favorites of the show. And also I've got a tabletop game in there. It's called Darkest Hour. It's my horror game that I put out for last Halloween. So if you want to pick that up, it's going for 10 more days. So by the time you're hearing this, 7 more days. So it's raised.
What is the name
Yeah,
of that bundle again, in case anyone's looking for it?
that is the California Fire Relief Bundle. There aren't fires in California anymore, as far as I know, but people are still affected. So we're raising money. And if you want to get a whole bunch of games, this has 422 games. I got it because I wanted to play Super Lesbian Animal RPG. which is $15 by itself. But this bundle is $10, so why not get 420 other games?
Sick.
So yeah,
20, but don't blaze it. The California Relief Fund.
yes.
Relief
That's a
Fund.
good tagline.
They should have thought of that. It might be
I'm
in bad
available.
taste.
I'm available to do taglines.
Might be as in bad taste as a deep listens
Meme coin.
Bitcoin.
Available on Coinbase near you.
No, it isn't. Stop telling people that.
Don't. If even a single person logs on to Coinbase because you did this, Pete, I'm gonna be so mad.
Marx will be so upset with me when I see him in heaven after I die.
Oh. Anyway, also follow me on Blue Sky. I'm Game Maker M all over the place. I've been doing a lot of stuff on there. I have over 1,000 followers on Blue Sky now.
Nice.
No, you're taking off on Blue Sky. I'm on Blue
Nice.
Sky also. I'm that Pinguino on Blue Sky, and that I do not have 1,000 followers.
I got in good with certain circles, so I got boosted.
Nice. Way to go.
Mhm.
All right. Speaking of plugs, before we discuss Caves of Qud, we've got our normal plugs for the show. You can get in touch with the show. Deeplistens.libsyn.com. That's where our comment sections live. And deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. That is our email address. You can support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens. I believe we're ambling towards 50, right? That is our Patreon goal.
Yes.
Or
No.
Duke
Yes.
Nukem Forever.
Sounds round. Yep.
Yeah.
We are continuing our growth towards that. So if you want to make us play Duke Nukem Forever, you can. $1 tier gets you access to our Discord. The $3 tier gets you access to the OG Soncast, our anime podcast that Pete is on. We just posted our Boogie Pop Phantom episode, which you could listen to. Pete, what is next for the OG Soncast?
Yeah. I had the honor to pick this time, so we are doing Big O.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh,
It's one you won't want to miss. Yep.
that's a good
I was
one.
I was thinking
support
about
this.
guesting on that one, but
Hey, we would love to have you.
I don't know if I have the time to watch a whole
Sure.
anime.
That's fair.
Sorry,
Very fair.
but maybe we'll see.
So yeah, you can support the show. If you do, it'll get us closer to playing bad games. And this would probably be the worst game we've had to play for the show, based on what Braden has told me. Because I
That
don't
can't
think.
be.
Look, he's played a lot of garbage, and from what he has said, Duke Nukem Forever takes the cake of the garbage cake.
Whoa.
So right, before we do my obsession of the week, anything going on the Discord report?
The Discord report. Boop 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 boop. This week on the Discord. Let's see. Hold on a second. I was looking at the Game of the Week channel, and I forgot to look at all the other channels. How is that league thing going? Has anyone had anything happen?
Yeah, so the Fantasy League is continuing. Right now, we've got currently in first place with 19 points, because they have had games come out, is Zeto, our Brazilian listener, with a sweet 19 points coming from Monster Hunter Wilds.
Uh-huh.
Rio Starwind has a sweet 11 points.
Nice.
And then we've got another 11 for Jeff Rude of the Final Fantasy podcast now. And then a whole lot of people tied at 0 because none of their games have come out. And then in last place is Adam Borgmaster Redacted with a negative 7 points.
Wow.
Because you have to do counter.
Wow.
You have to do counter picks. So you basically pick a game someone else picked and say that game's going to be bad or not come out. And Boardmaster counter-picked Lost Records, Bloom, and Rage. And that game actually got above a 70. It got a 77
Mhm.
review score. So he got a -7 points.
Oh, because he thought it was gonna get a bad review. It was.
Yeah, it's the next game by
Uh,
the Life is Strange people. Don't
I
nod since
see.
they've left. Uh, Square Enix. It's their newest
Hmm.
game, so I guess he thought it was not going to be good. Which, to be fair, like some of the Life is Strange like spin-offs and sequels have not been good. But yeah, coming in
That's fair.
last. But yeah, people are starting to fill out their rosters. Or went out, I think, for El Dandy, who has had just a brutal Hollow Knight Silk Song, Fable, which has already been like delayed beyond the year.
Canceled.
That's
Yeah.
already a 0. Unannounced Final Fantasy IX remake, Final Fantasy Tactics remaster, unannounced. I Am Jesus Christ was picked. Just
Hmm.
a hell of a
What?
team. What? What did I say that was
That's
weird?
that's the title. I am
Yes.
Jesus Christ.
It's
Yeah.
a game where you play as Jesus.
I mean, at least yeah, it's accurate then. I appreciate
Yep.
that. I guess.
Hmm.
Run around and you turn water into wine.
Yeah. You do all
Um,
those things.
you heal the sick.
I mean,
It's
yeah. Honestly, if you think of like Jesus' miracles, water into wine is probably like the least video gamey.
Mm.
Like, do the banishing of those demons into pigs, and they run off the cliff, or calming the storm on the seas or something.
I'm not going to tell you what is and or is not in this game. It seems to be a GTA like kind of. I don't
Oh,
know.
Mm.
okay.
Running around a world, curing the
Yep.
sick. Maybe we'll check that out. I don't know. All right. Anything else going on in the Discord, M?
So the Final Fantasy Magic set has been spoiled since we last talked. Uh, how
Wasn't
does this look to you as a Magic person formerly, Gino?
I'm probably going to come out of retirement to play it. But
Yeah.
currently, I mean, the cards look. It's funny. Zeto on the Discord was actually guessing what the mechanics would be little by little, and every single thing
Hmm.
he guessed turned out to be one of the cards and how it
Yep.
works. So like, yeah, they basically played it pretty straight so far. My favorite card of the ones spoiled so far is Jumbo Cactuar. Do you see that one,
Hmm.
M?
Yes. Gains 900 or 9,999 attack until end of turn when it attacks because
And
it
it starts
has
with one.
10,000 needles. Yes.
It starts with one power, and then when it
Yeah.
attacks, it goes up to 10,000 because it's 10,000 needles, and that's its
It's very
signature
funny.
move. That's very funny. Some of the cards, I mean, some of them don't look powerful, but that's normal. I
Mhm.
think they've nailed the flavor. Did you see how they're doing summons?
Mm.
There's
They're doing them
sagas.
in the saga format. Yeah.
Yeah, so they come in, they do something, then the next turn they can attack, then the next turn they peace out,
Yep.
which is kind of fun, and do a
Gino,
bigger effect, which is fun.
I, I don't want to derail us into a Magic the Gathering discussion because Lord knows I
Mhm.
wouldn't be able to contribute. So try to answer this in like one to two sentences.
And
Has like the Magic Company, I don't know who they're called,
Wizards of the Coast or
Wizards.
Hasbro.
Wizards of the Coast, thank you, or either one, have they ruined Commander yet? Now that they're in charge of it?
Gino doesn't like Commander, so this is an easy
Oh,
one.
okay.
Gino doesn't like Commander, so as far as I'm concerned, it was always bad.
Mhm.
But it would appear that the thing about Commander is that the people who want to play Commander just want to have their fun character and then just sit and drink beer with their friends for the most part. It's kind
Okay.
of hard to ruin it, you know? Hard to
Mhm.
ruin something that's that casual. And I don't know, M, do you think it's a fair appraisal? Like when we used to run Magic events, Commander people barely cared if the cards were good or not.
uh, when it comes to Commander, you basically just want your little special thing that you do. And if something new comes out for that, or there's something to build around, then people will jump on it and tank the price on everything. Uh, so yeah, I would say that's probably accurate. They are less concerned about overall power and finding instead one like really busted combo or something, or like
Or
a
just like
commander they can build around.
exactly. This is the card that's a legend and it's a dog, and I love dogs, so I made a
Mhm.
dog deck. Like that's what commander people want, and as long as you keep releasing new commanders that and like the Funko popification of Magic the Gathering
Mhm.
also I think makes the commander people happy because they like Warhammer 40K, and if you made a commander that's a Warhammer 40K commander, they'll love that shit. They don't care about the integrity as much, I don't think.
Which they did do, by the way, for Pete.
That's a real thing. That's a real
Okay.
thing.
Yeah,
Sure,
there
sure,
was a
sure.
set of 40k commander decks.
Yeah,
And
look
that
forward to the upcoming Marvel Spider-Man set.
Yeah.
and wait, so for some reason is having a Warhammer 40K deck worse
No.
or less integrity than a Final Fantasy deck?
No, I'm saying that the Funko popification has just continued apace.
Okay.
Like crossovers became a thing. What 7, 8 years ago, but they only released very special limited batches, and now like two out of every two or three sets a year are crossover stuff.
Hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised if we end up with like 50% licensed properties, 50% original content not too soon.
Yeah.
So makes me sad, but I will play the Final Fantasy one because look, it works when you like the property. That's the thing about Funko Pops.
I
Like
hate Funko Pops, and I still have like 2 or 3 just because it's properties that I like.
that's
And
that's how they get you.
a lot of people like Final Fantasy, so it's gonna be a hot one.
I'm one of the most. Um,
Hmm.
I'll try to do a quick shout out. You might already know about this game. My shout out of the week, my obsession of the week is have y'all played the board game Wingspan?
No, but I
Yes.
hear good things, and I think I know where you're headed with this.
That game's sick, and it was made for me specifically.
Yeah,
I feel like
I see that.
it's about birds, and it's a card game. It's a card game where you're playing birds, and they've got abilities that you can trigger and do bird combos, and then you're trying to get the most points. And it is like a round based game with supporting 1 to 5 players. You can play
Is
solo if you want.
is Wingspan the sequel, or did a sequel come out recently? Or like the person who made Wingspan made a new game?
Wingspan is the original, and there is Finspan, which is fish, and Wormspan, WYRM, so it's dragons.
Oh, I see. I was like, Worm
Yeah,
Span sounds like a parody.
Yeah, when
I
I
was
when I was
thinking
asking,
Finspan.
yeah, I'm probably going to pick up Finspan soon because I've learned of Wingspan's existence this weekend, and I have now played 5 or 6 games of it already. It's very good. I enjoy it a lot. If you like birds and also card games and board games, and I think it also has it's a very elegant design of the game. It's got a lot of different ways to win. So you're not just doing the same thing every single time, which is good for a game like this. And the art is very good. Got very good bird drawings,
Okay.
and very good pieces. So it's not that expensive, and I think it's got a lot of good replay value. All right. Now, without further ado, what's Caves of Qud?
Caves of Qud is a roguelike. I'm using scare quotes around that because I have some arguments with that assessment. It's a roguelike role-playing game developed by Freehold Games. It is a uh, open world style, randomly generated post-apocalypse science fantasy setting inspired by such things as Dungeons and Dragons. Wikipedia also cites Gamma World as a inspiration, which I've never played, but seems relevant. This game has been in development since 2007. The public beta released in 2010. It uh, hit Steam in 2015 in early access, and it fully released on December 5th, 2024. So this game has been in development for about 15, 20-ish years.
Sure.
And so we are playing the full release version of Caves of Qud.
1.0.
Yes, 1.0. This is also highly well reviewed now that I'm looking at it. And you are a explorer in the land of Qud, doing just stuff.
Mhm.
It's hard to explain what you're doing because it's randomly generated. But there is a main storyline. Um, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Does that sound accurate?
Yeah.
It does. And I have a question I'd like to throw out from the very top. I'm sure we're going to discuss this.
Sure.
I can only think of one other contender for the crown, but is Caves of Qud the ugliest game we've played for the podcast?
What do you think is uglier than?
What,
Uh,
wa- what
I
was the
don't think
one we
this is the
played?
ugliest game I've ever seen.
It was another. It was another roguelite. I think at least it was a run-based game where you were like fighting demons or something. It was like first person and it was
It could
ugly as
be
hell.
anything.
Oh god.
Run
Uh,
bait. Was it a shooter? Was it Devil
Yeah.
Daggers?
It might have been. Yeah, it was a shooter.
I think
Like I
this is
said, you were
before my
fighting
time.
Probably
demons.
Devil Daggers.
Yes, Devil Daggers. That was the one I was thinking of, Gino. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, that game was like a run-based shooter, but I would say both that game was trying to evoke like early PC shooters. This game is trying to invoke the game Rogue for the most part.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think this game is ugly as hell. It is overwhelming as soon as you start playing it with how much I don't know. It clobbers you over the head with its UI being overwhelming, and I would say you need like 5% of the buttons and hotkeys that the game gives you to actually play the game. Um, it is overwhelming, needlessly so, I would say. Like there are ways to make it much simpler and more UI friendly than the number of hotkeys that they made. Now I know that there's an expectation in this genre of playing with the keyboard and making it just hotkey soup. But I don't know. It seems to me like that probably pushes people away who might otherwise enjoy it.
Yeah.
And did you find it to be overwhelming in the same way, or did you learn to adapt?
Um, I mean, let's see. When I first open the game up, there is a tutorial you can do,
Right.
which does tell you quite a bit of the more useful things, such as holding shift in order to move in a diagonal. That's one that comes up a lot. Um, so it's a little like hard to parse if you are not familiar with these types of games. Uh, like I know that not using WASD for movement uh, was a thing I had to unlearn for this one.
Yeah.
Um, which there are only so many buttons on the keyboard, and they wanted to do a lot with what they had. So I can understand the arrow keys are probably more useful for directional purposes, but also,
And the numpad too.
yeah, the numpad is also relevant. Which sometimes you're playing on a laptop and you don't have a numpad, and so you can't do certain hotkeys. But uh, all of the things that you would be able to do with hotkeys, you can also use buttons on the screen in order to do.
Yes.
Um, Such as there's a button to explore the entire map that you're on. is keyed to num key 0, which I hit very often, and certain things like resting. Like if you hit delete on the numpad, that is to rest for like 10 turns or something. But there's all those buttons at the top of the screen that you can press in order to do that. So
And,
it's hard, but not impossible.
and I'm glad too that you brought up the explore the whole map button
Yes.
because I will say this. I was frequently overwhelmed by the hotkeys. It's another reason I
Mhm.
could never get like that far into RTS games, just because my
Mhm.
actions per minute are so low. But
Mhm.
this game did build in a whole bunch of very helpful automation, which I
Yes.
appreciated. So, like
Yes.
Em said, you can explore the entire map. You can press a button to just go to the nearest stairwell if you want to go up and down.
Mhm.
If you're in a town, you can just hotkey over to anybody in the town or any point of interest. So, like, especially for a game where like movements, let's just say it clunky a lot of the time, they do try to make a lot of quality of life moves, which I very much
Mhm.
appreciated.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
ability to pick up all items on a square is another good
Mhm.
one. The fact that like looking around does not take turns, so you can analyze
Yeah.
things for how much damage they take. Like truly, for being one of these and being a game that was in development for over 10 years to get to
Mhm.
1.0, and has the mechanics and layering that you would expect of a game that was in development for most hardcore of people. Um, it's surprisingly playable. It just hits you over the head with a
Oh yeah.
lot of. It is for people who like this genre. It is made by and for people who like this genre, and so while there are nice automations and ways to get through the game more quickly, it does not always surface those especially cleanly because there's
No.
just so much.
I
Um,
think the easiest like analogy for the way the game looks is if like you took a browser game and did like inspect to look at the HTML on the right side of your screen constantly.
uh,
That's basically what the view is at all times.
there's an HTML pane on the far right that has a bunch of gibberish happening all the time, and then you are moving around on a little square in the top left, kind of, and then there's
Yep.
another hot bar under on the bottom of the screen too, with all of your moves, all your special abilities. Um, so just to set the table, before we go too far into mechanics or character building, how many hours did each of us put into this? You're
You
going
can go
last.
first. Yeah.
I was sort of in between the two of y'all, I think, shading towards Gino. So I came in at, I think, around like 25.
I put in 17.
I put in 92 hours.
I mean, I had a lot of hours to put into Poke Rogue still this week, so I couldn't like
Mhm.
afford all that.
See, I broke my addiction to that after we played it for the podcast. So I did not have anything hanging up my uh, time for this.
See, my problem was I'm playing Final Fantasy Theater Rhythm Final Bar Line for the Final Fantasy podcasts,
What?
and
Which of those were words, Gino? Say that for me one more time again.
None of them were real words.
Final Fantasy Theater Rhythm Final Bar Line. It is a rhythm game. It is a Final
Oh,
Fantasy
okay.
rhythm game for the Switch,
Okay.
or the PlayStation 4. So that game is really good and fun for me. It's enjoyable to play. Whereas this game, I found joy in it eventually. It just took me a while.
Mm.
Um, so one thing I will say is, though classic mode is the default setting, if you do not
Don't play
love
it.
these games, even if you do love these games, do not play that to start. Play a role-playing mode first. That mode, you still create a character, you still have all the same mechanics. It just checkpoints you at towns. That's the only difference. If you play on classic, it's permadeath. I
Yeah.
played on classic first, with the thought process being I want to try a bunch of character builds because this game has a very in-depth character builder. There are 2 different types of characters that you can build, and I wanted to try, a whole bunch of different builds. Um, Em, can you explain the difference between mutants and true kin?
Yes. So, the 2 types of characters are mutants and truekin, which are the inhabitants of this world. They're like post-humans. Mutants are, as it sounds, they have mutated, and they have certain qualities, such as like you can grow extra arms, or you can grow wings, or you can have psychic powers and stuff like that. Um, and then Truekin are modified with cybernetics. So they have like robot stuff that they can do. You can have like better hands and like tank treads for feet, uh, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So, what characters? I played a bunch of different mutants, and most of them died, and then I committed to role playing mode and stuck with one. Um,
Mhm.
what did each of y'all's main character do? What was your build? Pete, why don't you go first?
Sure. So I only played mutants. Just seemed more interesting to me than the true kin, so I didn't play them at all. I tried a few different builds. I did a bunch of Esper ones, the sort of like mind power people, which are more powerful, I would say, on average. But the drawback is eventually you get strong enough that the game sends mind assassins to come kill you. And because I
What?
spent, yeah,
Really?
you know
I
that?
never did that one.
Yeah. So you get a glimmer rating,
Oh,
and
right.
as it gets higher and higher, the game starts sending assassins to kill you.
I see.
But yep. So I stopped doing that because I played most of my runs like an idiot on classic mode, and it
Oh,
started to annoy me. So I
yeah.
focused, yep, I focused eventually on a gunslinger character. I forget the exact name of the build, but I was using pistols and dual
Think of it
wielding.
as a gunslinger.
Yeah,
Okay, and
that's what I
what
did.
did you also do Esper mutations for that one, or did you change it
No, I
up?
went to physical. Most of the time, my strategy was just maximum arms.
Yep.
I'm just going to get as many arms as I possibly can.
You took the more arms means I can hit more
Yep,
approach.
more arms means more guns.
That's fair. Yeah, that's a good way to do it.
Em, what did you do?
Okay,
What
so
monstrosity did you make?
I also tried to do the gunslinger for a significant portion of the game. Um, and then I ended up in a situation where I just like got completely messed up by certain mechanics, which I'm sure we will cover in more depth once we get to that section. Um, so then I switched to a intelligence build because I wanted to do like crafting, and
Mm.
there is a like tinker mechanic that I usually try to do when I'm doing games like this. Um, so I was like trying to trying to spec into intelligence, and then as I got like deeper into it, um, you kind of just get all all stats up, and so I still ended up pretty pretty strong, I would say. Um, and that is that is the character that I got to level like 30 with. So
Mm.
so not
Okay.
quite completing the game, but getting pretty close.
I went with a mutant. So I did all mutants, and I first tried out a bunch of builds, kept dying early on in the game because I played too fast. Um, then I committed to a role playing build and made an Arconaut, which gives you like a bunch of salvaging abilities and agility.
Mhm.
And then I gave my Arconaut a turtle shell.
Ah,
I kept
yes.
I kept not finding enough armor and then dying very quickly because I didn't have enough armor. So I gave him a turtle shell, a electric powers, like body generated electricity.
Mm.
And then I could see in the dark, and I got the ability to phase through walls as my
Nice.
get out of jail free ability.
Yeah. I was gonna say you do want one that's basically like a get off me power.
Right.
So like I used corrosive gas a lot. That was my
Mhm.
my choice. But yeah, if you can phase through walls, you can teleport, you can put up force fields. You need something for enemies you're not going to be able to beat that you just
Mhm.
want to get away from or get off you.
Yeah. I should
Yeah.
also specify the character that I got to 30 with was a Truekin and not a mutant. So
Okay. What is different about Truekin? How does building
okay.
Truekin work?
So with mutants, you pick like your mutations when you start the character, and then as you go, you kind of will have moments when you mutate more. With Truekin, you pick up like cybernetic augmentations, and then you have to go to a becoming nook, which you might have seen as you go through the game. Um, and if you're a mutant, this will just say something like, "You're not an aristocrat, go away." Uh, but if you are a Truekin, it will recognize that, and you will be able to put cybernetics onto your body parts. Um, so all of those cybernetics that you were probably picking up, that's how you use them. Um, and I don't think there's any way for a mutant to become a Truekin, and uh, there are some ways that Truekin can mutate, such as from eating food. So sometimes you get mutations from that,
Oh,
but generally you're not crossing over very often.
I got a mutation from a gun once. Found a
Neat.
gun that gave me clairvoyance.
Ooh,
That's cool. It's a
sweet.
good gun.
It was a good
Hmm.
gun. Um, yeah. So this game, it dumps you into a starting town if you pick the normal start of the game
Joppa.
in Joppa. Um, how long, Pete, did it take you to figure out a way to advance the game?
Oh, like canonical
Story,
story advancement.
like story advancement, feeling like you had a sense of forward momentum and not just wandering around aimlessly.
Oh, I mean, I found the first quest kind of early. I mean, like if you talk to everybody in Joppa, like eventually you'll get it.
Yeah. Everyone you talk to will be like, go talk to Argive.
Yeah. But like in terms of like, am I actually doing well? Like forever. Like there are so many times where you step on a tile and then you just see like you died, and then you have to go read your running HTML text to find out why.
That was until I turned on role playing mode. That was basically my experience. Was trying my best to just get forward momentum in the quest because when you're in the early levels, you are incredibly vulnerable. And
Yep.
some of the early dungeons that they send you to can just have a shitty spawn. You know, they could just have like, oh yeah, there's baboons surrounding the entrance this time, and there's like 6 of them, so you're dead. If you run into them, you will not be able to escape. They throw rocks at you and you die. Or, oops, sorry, this time the starter level dungeon has a legendary enemy who's hostile to you spawned in it in the second floor. So you're just dead. Um, you're probably not escaping that. And unless you really know what you're doing, this game just kills you a bunch.
Yeah. There are like values. I'm just pulling this from the wiki. You know, I'm not getting this in the source code or anything. But there are values for individual tiles, such that like one, I think it's like 1 to 9, such that like you could expect a certain level of enemies in these. But it also increases as you go down in dungeons. So like lower levels are more dangerous. And even within those values, I feel like the game has a little bit too much latitude in the quality and number of enemies it's spawning.
Say more.
So like I think a 1 can like have stronger enemies than a 1 should have,
Hmm.
if that makes sense. And like this could very much be a skill issue. You know, I'm not denying I'm not the best gamer in the world,
Yeah,
but
well,
I felt like I died a lot.
you die a lot, and I think that this game, like, there are some games where you are getting your character will get better, you'll turn a corner on a mechanic or something. This is a game that is all of the growth, or most of the growth, I should say, is with your knowledge of its arcane, overwhelming systems, right? Like, there are a bunch of ways that this game will just capriciously kill you that if you had perfect knowledge of its systems, probably wouldn't. Like, you would know on a glance, oh, that weird looking square is this type of enemy, and so I need to do XYZ to not die to it, right? Like, you need to know what sort of things will happen with this enemy just by knowing on sight. Because if you engage in combat with a lot of enemies that are out of your range, and you can use the look ability and it'll kind of give you a general, oh, this thing looks very tough, or impossible. Like, it'll tell you if something's just gonna maul you, but it won't tell you like, hey, if you get near this mushroom on the map, and it releases spores. If you walk through those spores, hey, what happens if you walk through mushroom spores?
So, well, if you are not friends to mushrooms, we'll get to the water ritual. Yep, we have to
Right,
talk
that's
about the water ritual at some point.
that was really funny to me.
If you're not a friend to mushrooms, you will walk into that square. It will spore you, and then you will get itchy skin, and then itchy skin will develop into a fungal mutation or a fungal infection, which can only be cured through doing some very ridiculous activities.
So there's a
Uh,
bunch of stuff like that, right? Where you
yeah.
just
Yeah.
oops made a mistake because you haven't read the wiki enough.
Gotta
Like,
read the wiki, Gino.
I think we've all read the wiki because you have to play the game at all, really. But if you don't read the wiki enough, you will just get killed by something weird. So this
Yep.
is a game that I think the barrier to entry, in terms of feeling like you have mastery over the game, is really just hundreds of hours or dozens of hours reading the wiki. Like, you can.
Not for nothing. I happen to love tier lists,
Mhm.
so I was like, well, let me check out a mutation tier list just to like see
Mm.
maybe how I should be building. And they're like 4 hours long on YouTube. I'm just like, I just can't.
Okay, well, don't watch it.
I'm not
First
gonna
of
skip
all,
to the end. I'll be lost.
So I streamed this game once, and I had some Caves of Qud people in my chat, like giving me, basically telling me what to do. And one of them was like, "Yeah, I have 1,000 hours in this game." I'm like, "Sure, yep, checks
Sounds
out.
right.
Checks out why you knew all of the math and every enemy on site." And I mean, when you were posting some of the stuff that you were doing in the Discord, like, what happened when you met clams for the first time?
Clams.
so clams, when you step on a clam, it will teleport you somewhere else on the map.
Oh yeah,
So
I mean, we're all familiar with how clams teleport. I
yeah,
thought this was something,
yeah,
new and
that's how
different.
clams work.
Yeah,
Um,
those are clams. Duh.
uh, yeah, we've all met clams, right? Uh,
Whomst among us has not met a clam?
yeah. Stepping into a giant clam teleports the player to another giant clam in Lake Einum or the Palladium Reef. That is all it says on the wiki.
Of
Which
course.
you will learn this by doing it. Like, I learned it because some guy in town was like,
Hey, go
"Man,
step on that clam.
this lake was great, but now it's all messed up." And you're like, "What happened?" And he's like, "Go step on that clam and find out." And so you step on the clam, and then you end up somewhere completely different. And you're like, "That was rude as hell." But I learned the thing it wanted me to learn.
And did you die on the other end of that clam?
I managed to get out of it because it was on the surface, and so I could just hit S to go up a level
Okay.
to the map, and then I walked back, and I was like, "Dude, what the fuck?"
So I murdered that guy.
Yeah. No, if I attacked that guy, then the whole town would have aggroed, and it would have been
Yep.
bad.
And God
So,
help you if you went through the water ritual with him first.
Yeah.
so the
Oh,
water ritual.
let's talk about the water ritual.
Let's just talk about water.
Yeah, let's start
Mhm.
there. Pete, why is water so important in this game?
Water is important for two reasons. One, it keeps you hydrated, so you need to both eat and drink. And two, it is also your currency. So you can think of a dram of water, which I think is a couple milliliters, as like $1.
Hmm. So that is how the water is. But what is the water ritual then? Since water is money, and also
So
necessary to not
yeah,
die.
I guess it's like kind of like Dune. I mean, the water ritual is basically a way that you like make friends with people. So if you go to a town and you can become water brothers, and then that'll affect your reputation with, I think, this number is close at least, 59 different factions.
Hmm.
And you can exchange secrets and you can ask them to teach you things, and they won't aggro if you run into them, or they might if they hate you. But that's what the water ritual's for.
Or you can get them to join you,
Yep.
and then you have a little friend following you around.
What's
Which is
that
what
like,
I
Em?
did all the time. So if you look on the Discord, you can see all of my followers. Because if you do the water ritual, you can spend some of the reputation that you gain in order to gain that person as a follower. So I did the water ritual with the Elder of Joppa, obviously, because
Sure.
he was right there. Um, I did it with the mayor of Mushroom Town, which I forget the name of. Um, I did it with a random ape, and he came with like a dozen ape followers that he was dragging around. Uh, I later lost all of those extra apes, and so I did the water ritual with a gnu. How do you pronounce that?
I don't know.
Like the hoofed mammal, like
Yes.
GNU,
Yeah.
just new. It's a silent
Yeah.
G.
Okay, I did it with a new, and that new came with like 17
Oh
uh
my god, that is so
other
many
news.
followers.
I also did it with a warden and one of the Machinist guys. So I had like at least 20 people following me at all times. Um,
Does that become
which
cumbersome or overwhelming?
well, it certainly does when you're trying to go to such places as the Rainbow Forest, which did you guys get to this portion?
I did not.
I doubt it.
Okay, so in the Rainbow Forest, there's one type of enemy which is made when it's like a slime creature, and it is created when a liquid comes in contact with a it's called the primordial soup. So when another liquid gets into that, it starts to make these enemies. And then as you're getting hit, you're also bleeding. So you're going to bleed on the ground. So bringing 20 random NPCs into this location who were all getting hit and all bleeding all over the place, uh, I had to tell them all, like, all right, I'm going to go. I'm going to bring my one guy who is holding all of my shit. Um, and the rest of you are going to stay here. And I'll be right back. Because otherwise, it was just a nightmare every time I tried to do it. That was the most cumbersome. But the benefit of having all these people is that if you are over encumbered, you can still swap places with them. So
Mhm.
when I would go to a town and I have my like 10,000 pound chest that I hold all my shit in, which I usually give to my Machinist friend who just becomes over encumbered and can't move. Um, I take that and then I'm like, okay, I'm over encumbered, but I can make a little uh crowd of people to wave surf over to or crowd surf over to the fucking trader that I want to give all this stuff to. So that
This
was fun use of that.
this
Y-
brings up two things.
Yes.
One, like just based on YouTube, this
Hmm.
game seems pretty. Actually, I don't say easy, but there are a lot of cheesing opportunities if
Yeah.
you understand how things actually work. Like this is a game built to be cheesed.
Yes,
Mhm.
like a
2,
lot of the forums are like, I cut off my own face and then I grew back my face and then I wore my own face and that isn't that cool? Oh,
You get a achievement for that.
I befriended a
sure.
tree and then this tree helped me defeat this other thing. Like it's just nothing but I futzed around with the system. Isn't that cool?
Yeah,
Yep.
this is a game that is all systems on top of each
Oh
other.
my god, so many. It's also a game. If you like, this is my second point. If you like inventory management, this is the game
Mhm.
for you. Like you've never
Yeah.
seen a game that you would love as much as this one.
Oh, I hate walking around picking up everything. I just love having to run back to a town and setting up some sort of inventory management
Here's
Yeah,
scheme with chests and oh man.
shelves and drop downs galore.
Oh
here's what you
yeah.
do. Here's how you do this. You get one follower. You do the water ritual with one person. You get one chest. You put everything you don't want in that chest and you trade it to that guy. And then he just stands there because he's got 10,000 pounds of stuff on him.
But
And,
but
and
stands where? Why wouldn't you just like leave the chest back in Joppa?
you could do that. But if you wanted it to be mobile, this is how I
Wait,
did it.
but Em, you just said the person can't move.
Well,
Do
he
they go
tele
from screen to
no,
screen?
yeah, he teleports
Oh,
into
okay.
the screen with you. So
Got it.
you
Got
can
it.
just like have him by the exit, and then keep ferrying stuff to him. And then when you are ready to go, you just like teleport him into the next map.
Okay. So I just want to emphasize if what M just described to you sounds enjoyable, you might enjoy this game. If it sounds like something that will make you want to just beg for death, this game will not be fun to you, in all likelihood. You, it will overwhelm you with loot and shit, and you will just be running back and forth from. I mean, thank goodness someone told me that you can put infinite items in a chest.
Yes.
So like that's at least some way you can have all your stuff in one place. But the game doesn't tell you that either. You just need to like read a forum post that tells you that's how to manage your inventory. Otherwise, you are running back and forth between merchants, I guess, to try and get stuff out of your inventory, or you're just not picking stuff up.
Yeah. You know what
It's
the
just
most annoying
cumbersome.
part?
Everything's annoying.
The most annoying part to me was that like water's the currency. Water
Mhm.
also has weight.
Yes.
So,
Sure does.
so like if you're rich, your entire inventory is just water skins.
Mm.
Yeah, and
Let
what you
me.
need to well, what you need to do is you need to buy items that have a fixed value and that are
Yes.
very light. You're
Yeah.
buying gold nugget, like silver nuggets,
Yeah.
or there's
Look, I'm
credit
not.
cards. No, I'm look,
Yeah.
look.
I'm
I
glad you
know,
sensed my frustration.
I
Yeah.
know.
Uh,
It's annoying. This game was based on Rogue, and it's for sickos. And if you are if you are sick in the way that needs to organize inventories, and like
in
I
the
don't
way
know,
that I am sick.
in the way that M is sick, it will be very engaging. To me, it felt like chores most of the time.
I love to do chores.
But I mean, let's talk about some of the other like cool things that this game has going on because it does have
Sure.
cool stuff.
It
Um,
does. It most certainly does.
the combat, did y'all enjoy it? Like, did you enjoy when the game made you do combat?
Did I enjoy? I don't know that I
I
enjoyed like the combat itself. So like the actual act of combating things is pretty straightforward because it is largely turn based. What I did
Yes.
like, and this might be dodging your question, Gino, is setting myself up for combat.
Say
think that's
more.
fair. That's a good distinction. How did you have to set yourself up for combat?
So I think this game's biggest strength is character creation. Like you have a million mutations to pick from, you have a million bits of gear that you can put in a million different slots, and you can really like set yourself up not just to like be a general powerhouse, but if you even want to get like enemy specific and you can say like, okay, I'm going into a dungeon, tight corridors, I need like this magic or like this ranged effect. You can do that. And that's cool.
Yeah, and I think like I found exploring dungeons with the ability to phase through walls to be pretty fun, right? Like I could ignore unlocking doors. I could escape from enemies by just going through a wall and then putting a bunch of distance between me and them. You can't get attacked when you're phased, which is also kind of fun. Popping off all of the abilities that you have so that you can like run through a dungeon or something or do some exploring, I found that pretty enjoyable. The part where it's just die rolls under the hood, and if you just don't have the right armor class, you're gonna die in one hit. In a game where you might not even see armor, if you don't survive the first dungeon, I found to be pretty egregious. But I'm sure. Look, I'm sure that as someone who has put a million hours into this game will tell me like, oh, you just don't need to go to that dungeon. Instead, you go to this square in this one spot, and then it'll have this item on it, and then you're going to be fine. So why are you even complaining? Because that's what you should be doing instead. Right? That's what would happen if I said.
I mean, not really. It's randomly generated. You never know what you're gonna get. Nothing is guaranteed.
That's worse.
There's like there are how would I even put it? Um there are like certain methods that you are using in order to like have the best possible outcome. Like I would get to Joppa, I would immediately do the water ritual with the elder, the yellow guy there, and the warden, just to like get off on a good foot. And then there's a trader over there too, and you could just like spend like 10, 20 minutes getting set up before you go into the first dungeon. Which, to be fair, the first dungeon could be the one that is on the map of Joppa. Pete, did you ever find this?
A dungeon on Joppa?
There is
There's a
yeah,
crack.
there's a
Oh, I
crack
don't
in the
think so.
ground, which you just like go north of Argive, and then there is like a puddle, and then if you get within 1 square of the crack, it shows up.
No,
Um,
no. Why
yeah.
would I have done
Uh, the only
That
reason I
dungeon
knew about this
sucks.
is because Harley knew about this, my roommate. And so that's like the quote unquote starter dungeon, which could be completely like normal stuff. Like you could just have snapjaws and like slimes and such. Or you could have what happened to me once, which was I went down there and there was a slumberling blocking my path, which I don't know if you ever came across this guy. It is a thing that is asleep, but when it wakes up, it like can just like phase jump right to you and beats you up fairly quickly, especially at level 1. So it's a you know, it's depending on your spawn. So
Yeah,
you know.
I went to Red Rock, which is like the
Hmm.
first dungeon that they steer you towards, and in one of my runs, there was a legendary plant, like a legendary pond scum or something, that just summoned infinite plants. That was what
that.
it did. So if I ever got near it or aggroed it, it summoned infinite plants onto the first floor of the dungeon. So the only way I actually progressed that storyline was because I had phasing. If I didn't have phasing, I would have had to walk by that thing. But because I had phasing, I could just ignore that part of the dungeon. Which, depending on how sick you are, that either sounds awesome or awful. Right? Like it's the same
Listen, you
story.
you used the tools that you had and you overcame the challenge.
Yes. Like can you tell everyone about glot rot?
Oh, Glorot.
Okay. So at one point in the game, in the main story, you were directed to go to a place called what is it called? Hold on, I had mentioned it a lot. It doesn't
I mean, the
matter.
names are all gibberish.
Yes. It's all consonants and it's Golgotha. Um
Oh, that's actually a real place.
oh, is it?
Well, I shouldn't say real place. It's a biblical place. It's
Oh,
the
okay.
Hill of Skulls that Jesus was crucified on.
Oh,
Golgotha.
oh, I see. So you were directed to go there, and the only way to get to what you need, which is a robot in the basement, is to go through a series of like conveyor belts that are getting blasted with fire, and there's slimes down there. Uh, and you get to the bottom of it, and then you have to fight a big worm, which is gross. And then you find a robot, and in order to do this, you're probably going to step through a whole lot of gross, disgusting muck on the ground and fight slimes down there. And those slimes will give you a disease, which will make your throat sore. And for a while, your throat will just be sore. And uh, there are ways that you can get rid of it, like if you do a certain cooking recipe. Uh, but if you let it go for too long, you will end up getting clot rot, which makes your tongue fall out. So once you have glot rot, you can't communicate with anyone because you don't have a tongue, so you can't complete quests. And anything that is like voice based, like certain abilities, um, you cannot do because you don't have a tongue. And so, in order to regrow your tongue, you need to first get rid of the glot rot, which
Hey, Em, what would
require.
happen if you were dumb and grew your tongue back before you got rid of
Hold
the
on,
glot rot?
I'm getting
Okay.
to it. I'm getting to
Okay.
it.
Okay.
in order in order to fix your tongue, you need to get rid of the glot rot first. This is important because if you
Okay.
do
Okay.
the
Well,
next step
I'm sure
without
you wouldn't be allowed to regrow your tongue if you still had glot rot. That would.
no, that would be silly. But if you do, by some chance, have a Uber Nostrum injector, which is the thing that can regrow limbs, which you get one of by doing the main quest, and you inject that before you cure glot rot, you will regrow your tongue, and then almost immediately your tongue will fall out again because you still have glot rot.
Sure.
So you need to go to you need to find a very specific book, which is marked in yellow, so you know it's important. And that will have all of the like infections you can get, and also the ways that you can cure them.
Hmm.
So
But let's say
yeah,
hypothetically, I found this book in a
uh-huh.
previous run. I already know the recipe, so I can just
You
make it myself, can I?
You would think so, but the recipe is randomly generated every time you
Oh,
start the game.
you don't say.
Yeah. So if you were
Oh,
to go to the wiki, you go to the wiki and you're like, "How do I cure this?" Then you get told it's randomly generated every time the game is on, and you have to just go to the location where you find this book. Thank God it spawns like guaranteed on a particular person, because otherwise it would just be you're boned. Um,
Em, how
and,
would you know
and
that it spawns on that one particular person?
I knew this because I
You
looked at the
read the
wiki.
wiki.
Yeah, yeah, because you read a wiki. Because no, every character. I cannot emphasize this enough. You can trade with everything you see for
But
the
they don't
most part.
necessarily have something to trade.
That's true, but like almost everything in the game, you can try to trade with trees. You can try to
Yes.
trade with mushrooms on the ground. You can try to trade with every single character in every town. You can try to
Uh-huh.
trade with animals and plants, and some of them will have stuff. And so just the sheer overwhelming act of finding the characters that have stuff. Now, thankfully, it is a leader of a town, right? You might not
Mhm.
know where the town is at first, or that it is a town because it's just a giant pile of mushrooms on
Mhm.
the map. But at least it stands out. Like there's maybe you would go there by accident, right? Um, but until you know that this is the person who has the item, you're just fumbling around in the dark in this game, potentially, and the game will steer you to Golgotha before it steers you to the Mushroom Town. The game, I mean, never steered me to the Mushroom Town. You told me to go there.
Yeah.
Um,
What so what happens, M? You
Yes.
said that you only get one of these Uber Nostrums.
Yes.
What happens if I use that before I cure my glot rot?
So
Like,
yeah, if you use it before then you are in the situation that I ran into on my gunslinger character, which means you have no tongue, you cannot complete any quests. So you have to figure out where you can find another Uber Nostrum injector, or you have to find a regeneration tank, which there are two, it seems, maybe three. Um, One of them you will find if you follow that main quest, but you
But
Luck
you
doing
can't.
that if you can't
you
turn in
probably
quests.
can't.
You have
Yes.
to have a tongue.
Yeah, you probably have no reason to ever go to Bethesda Souza, which is where that first one is located. Or you go to the Yid Freehold, which is way the fuck to the right of the map, which is like past the Rainbow Forest and past this big lake. And there's one tiny yellow spire looking thing, and that's where you can find uh, a recovery tank. But it's not guaranteed to actually have the stuff that restores your lost limbs. Uh, so you there are some issues here. And I ended up in a situation where I was just getting like ravaged by diseases on that character. Um, I ended up getting like a different disease called monochrome, which makes everything black and white, which is just annoying. It's not really a problem. Um, and then what was the other thing I got? Hold on. Let
Did
me
you get
look
a
at the fungal
fungus arm?
infections. Oh yeah, I got the one that makes you have mumble mouth, which just
But
takes
you
up
don't have
one
a
of
tongue.
yeah. But my feet had mouths. Um and those were fungal mouths, which I can't actually communicate from.
But they do
Uh
whisper unspeakable truths to you.
yeah, they do tell you secrets. Yeah.
Which, like, this is ridiculous. Like, look, this game is a story generator. Right?
Mhm.
It is. This is deep lore. Like, there's tons of lore going on. Proper nouns all over the place. There are a ton of interesting interactions that can come up. I especially enjoyed when if you go down the main story path for long enough, you get to kind of a consortium of researchers, each of them researching different kinds of science. Like one person's a cook and they're exploring culinary science. One person was trying to make, I think it was edible air or something.
Ooh.
That's funny.
Isn't air edible already?
Look,
Hmm.
they were trying to make some sort of like air that tastes good or something.
Okay.
There was one character who spoke in sign language because they
Mhm.
couldn't, they were born deaf and mute. And so, having a game that's text based where the characters communicating entirely through sign language was interesting, like how they wrote out that sort of stuff. Like they have pretty intense dialogue trees with some of these characters. In a game that is very willing to just kill you in 2 seconds, they really want you to spend some time talking to these characters. And you can have these kind of interesting encounters. Like you can go into dungeons and have something. The story I told you about the pond scum that spawned infinite plants. Like that's interesting. You am losing your tongue and having to go on this quest to regrow it. That is an interesting story.
Mhm.
Did I feel like I was better for having been the person who played it, or would I have enjoyed it just as much if I heard three chuckleheads talking about it on a podcast? I think I would be happier if I was the person listening to the chuckleheads on the podcast. Um, I
That's a
don't
good
know that I
point.
enjoyed playing it.
I think you would listen to that podcast and be like, "This sounds absolutely awful, and I don't want anything to do with it."
But
You'd
I think you'd
laugh.
be like, but I would join the Patreon for the podcast, you know?
Yeah, like that amount.
Hmm.
Like this game has so many systems, and I read like some stuff when I was trying to look up how to solve certain parts. Like I read a person who used a mind control power to like mind control a character that did any of you ever run into the apple farmer's daughter?
Yep.
Nope.
Okay, and what's the apple farmer's daughter?
So an apple farmer's daughter is a unique looking sprite on the map. If you look, like you use the look function to inspect her, uh, she has
Mm.
like a long poem on there, and then by reading that poem, you fall in love with the apple farmer's daughter, and so you get your stats greatly reduced. Let me look up apple farmer's daughter. Um,
So,
yeah,
and by inspect, you mean ogle? this poor apple farmer's daughter?
I
How
mean,
dare you?
using the look function to
How
in
dare you?
okay. Um, yeah. So there is you will fall in love for 3,000 to 3,600 turns. There is no save or other way to escape this effect. While you are in love, um, you da, 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 da. Yeah, it's bad. -6 intelligence, -6 willpower, -5 move speed. Uh, so that's unfortunate to run into, and there's no way of knowing that that will happen until you actually do it, and then you're like, "Why am I all messed up?"
Yeah. So I read someone who built a character with high will, and they mind controlled a apple farmer's daughter, and then just made that their character, and they just ran around with
Mhm.
that as their body, basically, for the entire
That's
game.
interesting.
Hmm.
That's a
Hmm.
thing you can do. Like, you can make a clone of yourself and then mind control the clone. Like, there's a bunch of weird mechanical interactions that this game
Hmm.
has, and if you are into that, if that is what you want to do, is futz around with this infinite random generation story generator, um, that's cool. You are the person
Yes.
who has gotten the farthest in the
Yes.
story. Is the story itself, if you actually took the time to try and go down the main story quest, did you find that compelling?
I mean, from what we have been told on Discord, the story all comes together in the last like third of it. Um, and I am like on the cusp of that last bit. Uh,
So tough. I
yeah.
don't mean to malign your game playing. Obviously, you're a lot better at this than Gino or I. But are you trying to tell me that you put in 93 hours and you're only two-thirds of the way through the main storyline?
Well, that was among like at least two different characters. Uh, one got like 20 levels in, and then the other one got 30 levels in. So it's not all one character with 90 hours in it. And some like things I was trying, and I got up to do stuff. And
Yeah, I don't blame you. I'm just saying
Mhm.
I don't think I could put 93 hours into something and find out I was only two-thirds of the way through.
But here's the thing. Uh, the actual like number of main quests is not that long. Let me look at there
I think
was a
there's like
guide
10 or
here.
12 or something.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, 11. And I am on step 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm on step 8. So,
Okay.
you know, um, as far as the actual storyline goes, you are. I'll just try and summarize each step. Uh, you do some work for Argive in Joppa. He tells you to go talk to the Barathamites, who are the people under the archway, who are like the science people, um, in order to like decode a signal that he's getting. Um, they tell you to go to Golgotha in order to find a robot, um, and that will make them trust you. And then you go back to uh, the Barathamites, and then you need to go to Bethesda Suza, where there is a strange signal coming from a thing down there. Uh, and this is a like, there's kind of like a boss rush, sort of like one boss on each of 3 levels. You get to the bottom and you turn off the signal that's down there. There are machinists down there also, which can be a very big fight. Um, and then they want to go to the what the hell is the thing called? There's like a big spire in the north of the map. You need to go and deal with the Earl, and you need to have a certain like level of fondness with each of 4 factions. and then you do like a little you like have a meetup and you all like discuss what you want to do, who's going to control Almond Porch, which is the place that you're in. And
Spire.
then what's that?
That's that spire, the name of the spire.
Yeah, yes. This is like the town at the base of the spire, and then you go back to the Barathamites, and then they get attacked by a bunch of what are they? There's like knights from a different faction. They're like Templars, and then the Barathamite place gets overrun. You can do like a defense thing, like you can build walls and make the turrets that are in that area like uh, fight against the invaders, but it's much easier just to beat the shit out of them. Um, and then after that, they're like, okay, we're gonna make a thing to go up this tower, and then they send you into the like, what do you call it, rainbow forest, and you're gonna talk to a fungus in there, who is like a former inventor, obviously, because I don't know.
Sure, why not?
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
And then
Weird things talking and being secret geniuses or something
yeah,
is kind of this game.
yes. And then from there, he's like, you do a whole thing where you have to eat like fungus, and then you get to see a path, and that leads you to the guy's house. And then he's like, okay, I'll do it. But you gotta spread my fungus around. And so he gives
Ooh.
you a bunch of stuff to spray with fungus because you get a fungal infection that is only cured by doing the quest. And then they're like, we're going to go into the Tomb of the Eaters. And this is where it seems things start to come together because the Eaters are like, seem to be like the precursor race of this world. Um, but I got to the doors of this part of the game and I did not get into the tomb because you need to like figure out a tattoo that you need to put on yourself in order to have the gates open. And then from there you go like go up the spindle, which is the tower thing. You need to make a golem. You ascend the spire with the Brathamites, and then you fight the Templar, and they're like Nephilim and all sorts of stuff. And then I could spoil the endings, but none of us got to them, so it would just be reading off of this
Yeah.
this website.
I mean, I didn't understand anything after Barathamites really anyway. So
Yeah.
it'd be mostly gibberish to me. Gino, how far into the main quest did you get?
I got to the Barathamites giving me a disc to go do a quest, and that was
From Q Girl?
from Q Girl.
Yeah.
I got up to Q Girl giving me a disc,
Yeah,
We got basically to the same spot.
Yeah.
and then I started doing other
a bit further.
quests. I was trying to do some other side quests, and then I started looking up like what level the game expected me to be at for some of those quests. I was just like, no, no, I don't think so. I think not. And
Yeah.
like the gameplay loop of running into a random dungeon and starting to spelunk through it, even in role playing mode, like spelunking through a dungeon and then getting waxed on a bottom floor because some random thing spawned, just wasn't fun. I just did not enjoy it. For me, it was not a pleasant experience. I did not enjoy, and it happened in enough dungeons where like I would be on a good run, like constantly having to be afraid that some weird bullshit will spawn and kill you, at all times in all dungeons. It just wasn't fun. I just didn't enjoy that experience of constantly being anxious. And having to play like it. Like if you don't play like you are constantly in threat of dying, you will just lose a bunch of progress in this game all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, were you like resting? Like, were you waiting until you were
I was
healed and stuff
resting. I
like
was
that?
waiting till I was healed. I was, you trying to use my escape abilities when I could. Sometimes you just go to a bottom floor and it's like, oops, sorry, there was a legend in this one. or
Mhm.
oops, sorry, that object you didn't know, it's a teleporter. So by stepping on
It's
it,
a
it
clam.
teleported. It's a clam. It teleported you somewhere and you died because you couldn't escape. Those sorts of things would happen to me enough times that I just didn't want to explore in a game that's the only fun in this game, I feel like, is exploring and having random stuff happen to you. And yeah, the amount of friction. And maybe we should take this as an opportunity to go to listener questions. I think
Sure.
friction was one of them.
Yeah.
We took listener
Let's see
questions
here.
on the Discord about this game because it was one that we spent a lot of time on and wanted to know what
Yeah.
people wanted to hear about.
There's a lot to talk about this one. So, w- where's the friction? Oh yeah, Reki asks, I still haven't managed to play it yet, but it sounds like this game has plenty of friction. Maybe the role of friction in making a compelling gameplay loop and/or the storytelling. That's the
Hmm.
to be phrased into a question, which would be like, how do you feel the friction makes a compelling gameplay loop and/or storytelling?
I think that there's a fine line.
Mhm.
You need to have some amount of friction for a compelling game.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's just a roller coaster for the most part. But I think that for me, this game goes beyond the amount of friction I would want to engage with for the amount of story juice you're getting out of it. Um, but as a way to laugh at other people's simulator, the higher the friction, the better.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I'm probably the person I'm willing to say on the podcast with like the least tolerance for friction. Like I don't play the Dark Souls games. I sure as hell don't play Getting Over with Bennett Foddy if I can avoid it. So I will say, like, I think the issue with the friction in this game, and I think it was the issue I had with the game as a whole, is the randomness of it.
Mhm.
Like in other, like even in the Souls games, which, like I said, I don't particularly like. There's a feeling that, like, okay, I can just keep grinding this until I get good enough to beat like this guy, because this guy's always going to do the same stuff, and I know what to do to get to this guy and be like maximum strong. Whereas in this one, because it's so random, you can't really grind, except in the way Gino said of like reading the wiki.
Do you have any other take on friction and the desirability of?
Hmm. I mean, I do feel like the like that whole thing with the glot rot in the sense of making an emergent story, I think it was very successful because I was like, I invested a lot of hours into the character. I was like, I want to hear this thing. I don't want to give up. And so uh, when I got it the second time around, I sort of knew what to do. And I think that that made for good, like, narrative. Um, and I wouldn't have gotten that if there was not this like thing to push back against. Um, like the it was a huge pain in the ass. I won't lie about that. It was it it felt bad when it was happening, but then actually overcoming it, like doing a very uh complex maneuver in order to find the recovery tank that I needed to get into. Uh, that was like an interesting resolution. So I think if it didn't have that friction, uh, it would have just like you could steamroll it. You could just do whatever you want to, and there would be no repercussions because like we don't seem to have games that are pushing back in ways that are uncomfortable for the player to a really extreme extent like this. Um, it seems like if you were to be putting a player into a situation where they're like uh, unable to complete quests, uh, most people would like they would like review bomb it, you know.
Yeah,
Uh,
if you curate an audience over 10 years that is the
mm,
sickest sickos looking exactly for this, you can make a game just for that audience,
mm,
and and they will not review bomb it because this is what they want. you know, like in a way that if this was targeted at a mass audience, you would not be able to. Well, you could get away with this. It just would be a financial failure, right? It would just be a failure,
Mm.
and it would put the company out of business. Is what would happen.
Yeah, let me look at the store page. Yeah, it does have overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam. So, and that's like 9,000 reviews. So, I would think that it found its audience.
It did.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
You could fill an
I don't,
auditorium with the amount of people who like this game.
What a horrible auditorium that would be.
10,000 people is nothing to sneeze at,
It's a
you
big
know?
auditorium.
Yeah.
Hey, it's more games than I've ever sold. You know.
It's true. More than our
Yeah.
podcast, like Patreon, but you, dear listener, could make
Hmm. You and 9,000 of your friends.
closest friends.
Uh, I mean,
Any other questions that we got out of folks? Any
let's
other
see.
listener questions?
Yeah, for some reason I thought Caves of Qud was a roguelike.
It
Uh,
is.
yeah, it says Doyle, which it is, but I think that the roguelike element of this game is the worst part of it. Um, I feel like this is a game that really uh is uncompromising is how I would put it. And if you play it like a roguelike, if you're doing it in classic mode, you are going to get just rolled in unique and unexpected ways constantly. Um, and
Question.
so, yes,
As a developer,
yes,
how do you feel about making classic the default setting?
bad. I think, I mean, is it the default or is it just the furthest one on the left when you open
It's
up
the
the
first
new?
one. So like yes,
Yeah.
you have to intentionally mouse over to the other modes,
Mhm.
which is
I
fine.
think that let's see, what are the other modes? Hold on, I
Role
closed the
playing,
yeah.
there's an
Explorer or something.
exploration, explorer mode
Mhm.
where you don't get experience for combat, but you do for
Right.
exploring.
Mhm.
Um, and then there are a few others. There's tutorial, which just
Yeah,
is basically classic, but it starts you in a given location.
right. It seems like it is for the sickos that classic is like the quote unquote default. Um, but if you are just a person who wants to experience the game and doesn't want to have to restart every time a character dies, which could be like one character every 20 minutes, as
So
Gino
many.
Gino put it when uh, Gino, you went through something like 20 characters in 4 hours at the start of it, and I was like, stop playing this way. Don't do this.
I
Uh,
I I, I kept I learned like I kept trying to do more optimal plays in the beginning. And look,
mm,
if your armor class is low, which it will be early on if you
mhm,
don't have a shell or if you pick a mutant, um,
mhm.
your armor class will be low, and because your armor class is low, something can just crit and you die.
Yeah.
Like that's it. Like there's no don't get hit or because if you get hit, you can get crit
Mhm.
and then you lose
Yeah.
immediately. And it's just a bummer. Like you need to read a ton of wiki stuff to even feel like you've got a good handle on the mechanics. And then once you do that, you can hope that the die rolls don't fuck you over.
Mm.
Don't play in classic mode if you want to actually see this game's depth.
Yeah. If you want to actually like get through the game, I recommend the role playing mode. Uh, and I tried out the explore mode, and I was like, you know, there's a little too much. Like it takes off a lot of the friction that we are talking about earlier. You're still gonna get diseases, but not having enemies like aggro to you feels weird. for like a gameplay purpose. So you're gonna level a lot slower in explore mode. Um, but yeah, classic mode is just like once you've put 1,000 hours into this game, maybe you want to just jump into classic mode every time. I think that's like ridiculous, but that's me.
I'm
Um,
glad that you have a line.
hmm.
That there's a limit.
Listen, I would not if there was no like way to keep a character, this would be this would be nonsense. like like I would get what 20 hours into a character and then something like I didn't see like explodes and I die.
Yeah,
It would
that's exactly
be
what you would do.
yeah, it would be uh feels bad. Um yeah. So I'm not about like going to that level. Uh yeah, I just couldn't do it. I can't even conceptualize it even after putting 100 hours into it. Uh like someone might. I mean, calling out Braden Arbitrary Water Redacted on the Discord seems very passionate about this game.
I think it was
Um,
just so we had a couple questions from Braden.
mhm.
First one, why do you people hate fun? Um,
I like fun.
we like fun.
I
This isn't fun.
personally, yeah. Uh,
Uh, follow
I
up to
I
that.
yes.
Follow up to that from Braden. Is it bad? I have enough power over Gino to bully him into playing more of a game he doesn't like. Yes, it is bad.
Yeah,
But
probably.
I have integrity, and I will play games even if I don't like them for the sake of covering them. Just because
This is
I
called
don't like
peer
them,
pressure.
I just want to say, just because I end up not liking something doesn't mean I didn't go into it open minded. I sometimes don't like experiences, even if I give them a fair shot. That's called being a person. Um,
Hmm. We also have a question from M. How close am I to the ending? M, do you want to answer that?
Oh, so this was in response to Zeto saying the story picks up full steam nearing the ending. It's very Shimigami Tensei that way. I said, "How close am I to the ending?"
Oh, I
Yes.
didn't realize that Zeta was putting an acronym. I thought they were just writing SMART in a in a weird
Oh,
way.
no, I
Picking
understood
spot.
what was going on there. Um, yeah, and Zeto said that I was in the last third-ish when I went to the Riddle quest in the Rainbow Forest, um, and didn't get to see the end of that. Um, dumped a lot of hours into trying to get through that quest, uh, as we discussed earlier. Uh, but maybe I'll actually finish this game once we finish recording. Uh, Usually, once we do the recording for games, I'm like, "Yep, I got it out of my system, and now I never need to play that again." But this is probably one that I'll keep at for some
Uh,
reason.
and what other question we had from ZP?
Yes.
Spreadsheets and games. You got to have
Ah,
them,
yes.
especially with 4X games, RPGs, and simulations. Because you are going to compare the stats of something to another thing eventually. But what makes a good spreadsheet in a game?
Hmm. I mean, any opinions from you guys before I get into my?
Yeah,
My
I have at
stance
least
is. Go ahead, Pete. You go first.
mine's going to be I want like a very clear connection between any values in the spreadsheet and what's happening in the game. Like if
Mhm.
I need to know a whole bunch of like obtuse interactions between like my ego quotient and like some weird formula that's happening in the background, I'm out. If I can know like, okay, this goes up two things, my damage goes up by one tick. I'm like, cool, that's a good spreadsheet.
Mhm. Gino, any
My
thoughts?
stance is if there is a spreadsheet in a game and I have to care, if I have to look at spreadsheets for a noticeable percentage of the overall time I spend playing a game, I'm sad. It makes me sad.
Mm, okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
The more time I spend staring at spreadsheets, the sadder I become. And so this game, because you spend a good amount of time staring at spreadsheets, and to your point, Pete, often not knowing why or like why something's better or how it's better, because it's an abstract formula that you need to look up on a wiki. This game made me sad. What about you in spreadsheets?
All games are spreadsheets. Under the hood.
We're all spreadsheets when you
We
think
are
about it,
all
aren't we?
spreadsheets here. Um, I think that my game design conceptualization of games like these is that I would like a spreadsheet because that is what is controlling the game basically. Um, all of these items are on a table somewhere, and the wiki is just here to rip it out of the game and put it in front of my face. So I can cope with spreadsheets for as long as they have spreadsheets to show me. But I'm just fucked up like that.
I mean, and I get it, right? Like I'm very close to the sort of sicko this game requires. Like two of my favorite series are Pokemon and Fire Emblem,
Yeah,
both of which are really just math problems when you when you
yeah.
boil it down. But I think it's just like the randomness that I can't get past. It's like everything's just
Yeah.
so chaotic, and I'm like, this doesn't
It
align with my love of math.
it feels very chaotic because it's all of these like combat and cooking and status effects and illnesses and there's what is it, liquid fluid interactions.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
uh
God.
it's all interacting on top of each other, uh which is difficult to parse, let's say. But once you like start to understand, like it's not it's not just throwing completely random shit at you. There's like some like
There's
formulas
a
going
method to the
on.
madness, and
Yeah,
sometimes you can know what's there, and it
yeah,
might still kill you anyway, but you'll
right,
understand why in a way that
exactly.
if you played Dark Souls and said this isn't random enough, and also what if it was uglier?
What
And
if there was a
also,
scrolling line of text on the right side of the screen at all times?
yeah,
as
what if the
as
act of playing it sucked too? Um,
as the resident Dark Souls liker, yeah.
yeah, what if Dark Souls just cut straight to the unfair killing you and also didn't have compelling action gameplay? What if instead
I
it was text?
I
Or
don't
like,
think. Hmm,
what
What do
if you
you
played Final Fantasy and you were like, this is just a little bit too much reading? Then this would be the game for you.
and what were you going to say? Did you find the action to be compelling?
I was gonna say I don't. Oh fuck! It got a little away from me. Um, say what you said again, Gino. One
What
rephrase
if
it.
you know, you're a Dark Souls person and you thought the
Mhm.
game should be uglier, the
Uh-huh.
controls should be more obtuse, the world should have more proper nouns in it.
Mhm.
You don't like action gameplay. Instead, you want to go. Oops! I pressed the arrow key one time, so I missed my turn. Fuck! I'm dead. Fuck.
Okay, I remember what I was going for. Um, I don't think it's as random as it seems. Like when you are experiencing it for like the first couple of times, there are reasons you're dying. Some of those reasons may be like your stats weren't high enough and you didn't see that there was a spike on the ground that you stepped on. Uh, so there is a logic to it. It's not killing you for no reason. The same way there is a logic to Dark Souls, and it's not just like needlessly slaughtering you. It's it puts something in front of you that you were not prepared to deal with.
Um,
Um, So I see a
But
lot of that. Yes.
counterpoint.
Mhm.
Whenever anything dies, there's always a cause of death.
Mm.
Simply knowing that there was one does not mean it was fair or fun.
Okay. Uh, what?
Yeah,
I mean,
sometimes
what
my
can you
stats are
say
too
about
low
it?
to see the spike in the floor. That's true.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's invisible because my stats were too low, and if I had put my stats in a different way, I would have seen the spike on the floor, and that's cool.
Mhm.
But when you're on level 1, you have to make
Uh-huh.
choices about what stats get points, and
Right.
sometimes the stats that you give points to are not the ones that let you see the spike in the floor that makes you bleed to death.
But you have made a choice to put those into other stats.
Yeah.
You've
Gino.
made the decision.
And look, I'm
You've
sure that
made the
if I had
suboptimal decision.
Yeah, and I'm sure if I had put the points into the see the spike on the floor stats, there's
Uh-huh.
no way that the game would have caused me to get beaten up by someone because I didn't have points in toughness instead.
Mhm. Yeah,
You fool.
you're
You
you're
invested so
ch-
much in spike seeing, you didn't invest
right.
in baboon fighting.
You got to
Moron, you
make
absolute idiot.
decisions. You got to make decisions, and you chose. I want to be able to not get killed by rocks by these baboons throwing at me. Uh, and that is
You-
a valid way to approach it.
And then when the spike punctures
And
through
then
your
when the
foot and
spike
causes
gets you,
you to
you're
bleed
like,
to death.
well, I should have seen that coming, but I didn't because I didn't put the points into it.
I guess I'll reroll those points and oops, there's no spikes on this dungeon and instead it's all baboons with rocks and
Mhm.
that's a bad time. But if this sounds like a good time to you, check out Caves of Qud. It's a
I
game that is unflinching in its vision.
Yes. I will
Fair.
say another point I made on the Game of the Week channel.
Mhm.
Billy would have loved this game.
Oh
Oh,
man, would he have?
100%. We never would have seen him
Billy,
again.
if I should have tagged him and asked if he was already playing this game, uh, because this seems like one of the things he would like have been on the early access of, like when he was following
He would have
Hades
been in there
to.
15 years ago.
Yeah, we're late to this party. He's already over it.
I just feel like, thank goodness we didn't rope him into this because he's a father now.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Has other
The true
responsibilities.
grind father.
Exactly.
Mm.
But yeah, that's Caves of Qud. Any closing thoughts? I'll give you the floor. I feel like Pete and I have said our piece. So, any
Yeah.
closing thoughts?
I feel like I fall between Gino and M in my
Mhm.
attitudes toward the game.
I like this game. Uh, that's my closing thought. Um, I think I roped Gino into playing more of this game when he wanted to quit by saying that he was a weak little baby.
Sure.
And I stand by that.
We all do. That's the official position of the podcast.
Yeah. Uh, get good, etc., etc. All those Dark Souls things. Yeah, I have nothing else to add. I hope to finish this game and I'll report on the actual ending on the Discord probably.
That's
We'll see
fine.
it if it comes together. Oh, also, this game was like nominated for narrative awards for like,
What?
yeah, which I'm very curious about. I want to know what was going on there because people are like, "Oh my god, this is I've dumped 1,000 hours into this game. It's one of the best narratives I've ever seen." I'm like, "Where are you? Is this the right game? Are you on the right?"
Like
It feels to
90% of
me
the story is procedurally generated.
Correct.
so. It feels to me like an Onion article that just says "Man nominates own D&D campaign for Oscar,"
Mhm.
or like Hugo Award winner is Man's D&D campaign that he's played with his friends since he was 10 years old.
Yeah. If you like D&D, if you're coming off of Baldur's Gate 3 or something and you want a D&D like, this
Fucking
is
hates you.
this will confuse you, but maybe you'll get
There's
something out of it. That's
There's
my
a lot
thing.
of notation too that says things like 2d5. I had to look that up.
Mm.
I didn't know what that meant, but I learned something.
Yeah, that's how dice rolls work.
Yep,
It's
did not know
doing dice rolls.
Well, while you were lifting weights, other people were rolling dice, Pete.
that.
Sorry to say.
We're built different.
Yep. All right, which means it's now my turn to pick a game again.
Do it.
I wanted to play something that looks fun. This was a game that was on sale
Yeah.
on Steam a little bit ago. And Pete, do you remember Wuppo?
I do.
Oh
I do
no.
remember Wuppo. I like that one.
This game looks like it might be Wuppo adjacent, so
Okay.
I feel like it's appropriate for us to cover. I want to play Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion.
I mean, you already sold me on the title.
I think I have this game already.
Good. The description: playing as adorable yet troublemaking turnip, avoid paying taxes, solve plantastic puzzles, harvest crops, and battle massive beasts, all on a journey to tear down a corrupt vegetable government.
80%
mean,
off on Steam right now.
topical, feels like.
Yeah,
Is it?
it might be. But yeah, Turnip Boy commits tax evasion.
Apparently there's a sequel to this. Turnip Boy robs a bank.
Okay. Yeah.
Excellent.
What's everybody's favorite crime? Mine's wine fraud.
Wine
That's a good
fraud?
one.
Yeah, it's my favorite crime.
So, like, what? Saying that the wine you're selling is from a region that it isn't?
Correct.
Saying it's like this is Thomas Jefferson's wine, but it's just like saying wine's fancier than it is and selling it to rich a-holes.
Oh, see, I would have assumed it was like violating a region. What is it that like Italian wines have? Like, this is a region indicative wine.
Yeah.
They put a sticker
Or
on
like
it.
champagne has to come from the Champagne region of France to be real champagne.
Yeah, and I'm like, nah, I've got a still in my bathroom, and that's where I make my champagne. Damn it! What is your favorite crime, Em? Please say it into the microphone.
Arson?
That was a close one. I'm gonna go with
Crypto rug pulls?
oh, that one's yours,
Unfortunately,
I
very
think.
legal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. It's not even a crime.
I'm gonna go with trapping men in my basement and force feminizing them.
Okay,
Oh,
that's a good one.
it's a
Yeah.
good crime. Very specific. Very boutique.
In-
Mm-hmm.
Inspired by the book series I'm reading right now.
No further notes, and no further questions. I'm gonna go with the classic Futurama answer from one Bending Rodriguez. I like extortion. The X makes it sound cool.
True. True.
All right. Well, thank you, Pete.
Yeah, always a pleasure.
Thank you, M.
Thank you. I'm sorry to Gino.
That's fine. I
Yeah, and
played
with
this
all the
game.
things he's
It will
done to
happen
us
again. It will
over the
happen again.
years, he doesn't deserve your apologies.
All right,
It'll
I take it
happen
back.
again.
No apologies.
What is the show if not each of us once or twice a year just making the other two miserable?
True.
We even have a show if that didn't happen. I don't know.
I don't think so.
Reminder, you can get in touch with the show, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment sections, and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. That is our email address. You can support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens. Till next time, peace.